It assumes Africans are children still. They are not mature. They cannot deal with the world powers. They will be ill-treated and fooled as small kids. That's what it implies.
So Mao Zedong, we shall never forget Mao Zedong, because he gave us support immediately.
Today, we're looking into intense encounters that took place when African presidents called out double standards from the West and challenged their assumptions about African sovereignty. In these exchanges, the presidents particularly confront a recurring issue: criticism from the West about China's influence in African countries. Buckle up, because the responses are as fiery as they are revealing. The first encounter is between the late Namibian President Hage Geingob and a German diplomat. Right from the start, Geingob challenges the German diplomat's perspective and points out the double standards.
I always get a principal amazing amount of appreciation what has been done over the last 30 years, particularly compared to the development in other African countries in the same period of time. But to be honest, there are two concerns which I hear more often, including the first 24 hours of my visit just now. And this is the concern on increasing Chinese influence in the country and a concern on increasing corruption. And some even assuming that there might be a connection between the two developments. Whereas in Namibia, for example, the number of Chinese people living here in the meantime is 4 times as much as, for example, the German community. And insofar, it's not precisely the same what takes place all over the world. There are differences. And what I'm...
Mr. Speaker, yeah. What is your problem with that? Why does it become your problem? It looks like it's a more European problem than our problem. Yeah. You are so sorry for us. I don't see... Chinese will never come and play around here. As Germans not allowed to do that. Which Germans are doing, by the way. You talk about Chinese. We allow Germans to come without visas here. Red carpet. Our people are harassed in Germany. Even diplomatic passport holders in Germany. And you come in here, Germans come in here as they want. So why Chinese talk about Germans? How you are treating us there? Chinese don't treat us like that. Diplomatic passport. We're coming back from Geneva. These people were held up at the airport. Just now, last week, in Germany. We know what we will handle our own country. Don't be sorry for us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Every time Westerner comes, it's about Chinese. What is the problem? Is Namibia having a problem with Chinese? Did you tell Western Namibians that Chinese have overtaken Namibia? Not on my watch. Mm-hmm. I told Chinese ambassador, yeah, I'm not your puppet. It was in press everywhere. So please, respect us. That's all I will say. It shows disrespect. That we are children who are going to be cajoled by Chinese or so. No. Chinese are coming in infrastructure all over Africa. And I saw in America, they are there. Who bailed Americans out from the financial crisis? Chinese money is there. So why small Namibia, who fought Germans, even Germans were fighting with you. You are tough people. Now Chinese will come and, after our sovereignty, come and decolonize us? You think so? Germans cannot succeed. Even those Germans who are here. So please, that every European coming is about Chinese. And Chinese, we are dealing with them. Then Germany. They come in Germany, then America. France, they bought up France. So Namibia is not bought out yet. So please, as I said, I told Chinese plainly, we are not going to exchange any old colonial or imperialism with new imperialism.
Geingob challenges Western double standards, questioning why Germans criticized China's role in Namibia when Chinese investments of over $200 billion have helped fill vital infrastructure gaps that Western aid ignored. He asserts that African nations like Namibia are free to make their own alliances and decisions without colonial interference. Recalling Namibia's painful colonial history, Geingob defends these partnerships as a step toward independence and sovereignty, pointing out that Western nations, too, have benefited from Chinese aid, especially during the 2008 financial crisis. If Western nations can accept Chinese aid, why criticize African countries for doing the same? In his view, China's presence in Africa is a partnership, not a revival of imperialism. Like many African leaders today, he's asserting a new era of choice and sovereignty, making it clear that Africa is no longer under anyone's thumb. Next up is Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni's explosive take on China as an ally. According to him, China was one of the first nations to stand with African countries during their liberation movements in the 20th century, providing support when it was sorely needed.
Do you by now prefer other governments like the Chinese or some Arabic countries over the Europeans because they are lecturing less and they just do stuff?
We don't prefer, but they don't waste our time, for sure, that's for sure. They don't waste our time, because to have somebody telling me something which I know better, and out of politeness I need to listen, to talk, to answer, instead of saying, go to hell, and I walk out. Of course, we waste a lot of time. The Chinese waste less of our time, for sure. They come on business, a road, a factory, to buy something. Management of our affairs is ours. They don't interfere in ours, we don't interfere in theirs.
As you're such an experienced leader, if you look throughout the last years, maybe even decades, do you see that there is some sort of change, that the role of China in Africa, not only in Uganda but in Africa, is growing, and that Western powers, the Europeans, the Americans, are rather disappearing? Or how do you observe the situation?
The Western political leaders and thinkers are very superficial. It's just really tiresome, very superficial. You see, when the communists, I can give you some little history. I will not charge you. I will not charge you money. This is for free.
Thank you very much.
When the communists took over China in 1949, we were colonies. The whole of Africa was colonies. Not colonies of China or Russia, colonies of Europeans. So when Mao Zedong took over in 1949, immediately he gave us support to kick your cousins out. For you, the Germans, you had already been kicked out by your cousins, but your cousins were still here. So Mao Zedong, we shall never forget Mao Zedong, because he gave us support immediately. So now that they are much richer, they are upscaling our cooperation with them, which was originally political, diplomatic. Of course, we were also supporting China in the UN, because the Western countries had kept China out of the UN, out of the Security Council. So we were supporting them to come to the Security Council. So therefore, the cooperation between China and even Russia with Africa is not new at all. It is historical. It started with the anti-colonial struggle. Now it has blossomed into economic cooperation. But you hear the question you're asking. It means you don't know the history of Africa. You don't know that we have been working with the Chinese all this time. You think that we have just started. We haven't.
So, but when I understand you right, you feel like China in some way is a more sincere partner than the Europeans. They have been better friends in the past.
At least for now. At least for now. They may change also. They may change and become parasitic.
Some would say the Chinese are now the new colonial rulers and they exploit Africa for their own purpose.
No, not at all. If they become that, then they will be hated like you people. You were hated. We had to throw you out. If they become that, and that's why we need to strengthen. It's true. The Chinese can change. They can become also another another hegemonic power. That's why we need to strengthen ourselves to build a united Africa, to build the common market of Africa, to build even the political integration of Africa, of some parts of Africa, so that Africa is not a low-pressure area, an area where there is a vacuum of power. We need power here.
I'm a bit surprised that you're so critical about the West, the Europeans and the Americans. I mean, nonetheless, they give billions of euro to Uganda, billions of dollars, if I'm not mistaken. So isn't that something that should be appreciated?
Are you a Christian?
Yes.
Have you heard of the story of Esau?
Sure, you're going to tell me.
There is Esau, the one who sold his birthright in exchange for food. I'm not Esau to sell my birthright in exchange for food. Esau was a brother of Jacob, and he sold his birthright for food. You show him the quotation in the Bible about Esau. It will help him.
It's a nice metaphor.
Jacob capitalized on Esau's extreme hunger by offering him stew in exchange for Esau's birthright blessing. Esau, driven by hunger and emotion, agreed to the deal without considering the long-term consequences. Genesis 25:33. Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. So what's the verdict? Is China a partner or a threat? The truth may lie somewhere in between. China's involvement has undeniably brought infrastructure development and economic activity. However, if African nations don't keep a close watch on their autonomy, they risk repeating history with new economic dependencies that could undermine their growth. President Museveni regards China as a long-standing ally, recalling its early support for Africa during anti-colonial struggles. Today, however, China's role has shifted to large-scale economic investments, particularly in African infrastructure. While these projects have accelerated development, they come with hefty loans that have raised concerns about a new dependency. Critics worry that if countries struggle to repay the debts, China could seize key national assets, a situation some call debt trap diplomacy. Museveni acknowledges these risks and warns of the need for caution in managing Africa's partnerships. We could be looking at a future where Africa's resources and economy are once again in someone else's hands. To counter this, Museveni advocates for African unity and self-reliance, proposing a center of gravity that strengthens Africa's bargaining power on the global stage. By building strong internal markets and prioritizing regional trade, Africa could avoid over-reliance on foreign nations and instead negotiate as an equal. However, he stresses that this vision requires transparency and solid governance to prevent exploitation and ensure fair partnerships. For Museveni, China's involvement is beneficial, but must be balanced with a focus on African autonomy to avoid repeating the continent's colonial past.